Buongiorno a tutti, spero che voi stiate bene. Oggi vi parlo dei participi passati irregolari che si usano con il verbo ausiliare essere. Okay? So today we're looking at irregular past participles which are used with the verb essere as the auxiliary verb. So in my last video I looked at some irregular past participles with avere as the auxiliary. So these are the ones which are slightly more difficult. So with verbs that are conjugated with essere as the auxiliary verb, you need, of course, to use the present tense of essere, which is outlined here. Sono, io sono, tu sei, lui, lei è, noi siamo, voi siete, loro sono. Okay, so you don't have to put the io, tu, lui, lei in front of these. Of course, you can just use the present tense conjugations of the verb essere. You don't necessarily need the subject pronoun like in English. So as long as you know these, then you add the past participles of the verbs in question. So normal verbs, verb endings. Let's have a look. On the handout, I've got some very common ones. We'll look at the regular past participles first, and then we'll look at the irregular ones. I've got 8 to look at today, and we'll see why they're irregular, and then we'll do some practice both from Italian sentences, and I'll give you some English ones to do as like a homework. So normally, if you take the verb andare, for example, that's to go. So in, say, the passato prossimo, if you want to say I went, okay, the verb to go is very irregular. Also in English, I go changes to I went, or I have gone, if you like. So you would have the verb andare, which is an ARE verb. You take off the are ending, and that leaves, there's the stem, andato. Now, the thing that happens with verbs that take essere, as well as remembering that you have to use essere as the first part of the compound tense, you also need to agree in gender and number the past participle. So here, if I was saying mio marito è andato, my husband went, or Marco è andato, Piero è andato, then that's fine because the subject of the sentence is a male, masculine. But if I'm talking about myself, I went, then the ending changes to ata. Okay, so it'll actually look like andata. So that's the confusing bit. So ARE verbs go to ato or ata, or ati with an I, or ate with an E at the end, depending on who the subject is. If it's singular, any of these ones, it will end with an O or an A, depending on the gender of the subject. And if it's plural, the ending will be I or E. Okay, and that's going to change the pronunciation. Siamo andati, we went. So that's either a group of boys or a group containing at least one male. Siete andate, voi siete andate, that's a group of girls because the ending is an E, but it's the plural ending. Sono andati, sono andate, they went, a group of boys, group of girls. So the confusing thing is as well that sono and sono are both, well, they look the same. So the way that you tell the difference between whether it means I went or they went is the ending. So ascoltate, sono andata. That means me, a single girl, I went. Sono andate, they went, the girls, the group of women. So are verbs, as per usual, go to ato, but the ending, the O, might change to an A, I, or an E, depending on the gender and the number of the subjects. Let's see what we have then. So IRE verbs, like that use essere, remember as the auxiliary verb, like uscire. Sono uscito a I e. Okay, depending. I went out. So the verb uscire means to go out. Ieri, io Sono uscita. So the ending, that's going to look like this. Sono uscita. Perché io sono una donna. Dunque c'è un ere alla fine. Invece di uscito. Okay, that would be something that a male says. I went out. Sono uscito. Sono uscita. If it was they went out, it could either be sono usciti or sono uscite. Okay, so the ending tells you all about the gender and number of the subject. Okay, so ARE goes to ato, IRE goes to ito, or ita, iti, ite. Okay, and then we have, what else do we have? An ERE verb. So these are regular endings, remember. ERE verbs. Ooh. So this should be the verb cadere, which means to fall. So ERE verbs go to uto, caduto. Sono caduto is what a guy could say. If he fell, I fell. I have fallen, if you like. Io, invece, io direi sono caduta. Siamo caduti. Loro sono cadute, for example. So these are regular past participle endings. Ato, ito, and uto. Right? But remember, you need to agree the endings depending on the gender and number of the subject, and you need to use essere with these particular verbs. They tend to be verbs of like movement. Okay, to leave, to come back, to go. These are the types of verbs that take essere, and also reflexive verbs will always take essere. They're a bit more complicated, and reciprocal verbs, and we'll leave it at that for now. So let's look at some of the irregular ones. On the handout that I've got, which will look something like this, and this will be emailed to my club members, we have the following. So if I introduce past participles, I'll show you what they look like, and then we'll fill in the verbs, okay? So, stato, stata. So in these past participles, I've just got the singular endings, either stato or stata. So I'll give you the full example as well in the feminine singular. So, io sono stata. Sono stata. In fact, I think on this page I've already written out. Yeah, so what I've done is I've written out the infinitives. It'll save a bit of time. Sono stata comes from the verb essere, to be. Okay, so stato or stata. I have been. Per esempio, io sono stata in Francia tante volte. I have been to. Okay, sono stata from the verb essere, to be. And the funny thing is, you conjugate the verb essere with the verb essere. So the conjugation is the present tense, sono, plus the past participle of the same verb. Sono stato, sono stata. Siamo stati, siamo state, etc. Okay, here you have the second verb. You can see the infinitive there. Nato, nata. Per esempio, io sono nata in Inghilterra. Io sono nata. Mio marito, anche lui, è nato in Inghilterra. From the verb nascere, there's a C, an SC and an E, which is a sh sound, and that means to be born. Okay, nato, nata. Okay, the next one here we have, you can see, this is in the same order as the order of the past participles in my hand. Morto and morta. Okay, so it seems a bit weird to say it in the io form. Let's do it in the lui lei form. Lui è morto ieri. So this is from the verb morire, which means to die. So è morto sounds like it means he is dead, but it also is the passato prossimo, he died, he has died. Lei è morta la settimana scorsa. She died last week. È morta. Sono morti sono morte. That's the plural form. So, morto, morta. So think of the word mortal. I'm thinking Mortal Kombat. So something that can kill you, mortal. Rimanere, okay, so that's the whole verb. Rimanere means to stay or to remain, if you like, and this is the past participle. Rimasto. So that looks completely different, that ending. You might think it would be rimanuto, but that doesn't work, it doesn't exist. So you have to remember this one. Rimasto, rimasta. Io sono rimasta in un albergo. I stayed in a hotel. Rimanete a casa, stay at home. Don't go anywhere else. So, siamo rimasti, siamo rimaste a Roma, for example. We stayed. Okay, so rimasto, rimasta, rimasti, rimaste. This one, I hope that you know by now. It's a really useful one. So, from the verb venire, sono venuto o sono venuta. Lei è venuta alla festa. So you might look at that verb venire and think venito. Yeah, it would make sense, but it is irregular, remember. So instead of ito at the end, it's uto, uta, uti, ute. This one's kind of strange, but I like saying it. So scendere is to go down. It can also mean to get off something, like to get off the bus, or get down from the bus if you like, get down from the train, like lots of modes of transport, from a car. So sono scesa, scesa or sceso is the past participle of scendere. So it's not scenduto, sceso, sceso, scesa, for someone like me, a lady. Now, these last two are not as common as the other ones, but I just was looking for a relatively short list to show you some of the very irregular past participles you can get. So, apparire kind of looks like the English to appear, right? To manifest, if you like, or to suddenly arrive from somewhere. So, apparire is not apparito, it's quite irregular, it's apparso. Lui è apparso. Lei è apparsa. Right? Now, underneath we have a verb which looks kind of similar. It's got this parire ending. However, this is basically the opposite. So when you have a verb with an S in front of it, or an S and a C, it often means like the opposite of the verb. So scomparire is to disappear or to vanish. So you can probably guess it's very similar to this. Scomparso. There's not quite enough room to put the a. Io sono scomparsa. I disappeared. Okay, so let's have a look back through the list of infinitive verbs that I have in my hand. And let's see whether you can remember. Actually, let's just do this one more time. Let's look at the past participles on the board. So, just to model pronunciation. Sono stato, sono stata. Sono nato, sono nata. Sono morto, sono morta. Bit strange to say that. I died. I died laughing, you might say. Sono rimasto, sono rimasta. Sono venuto, sono venuta. Io sono venuto perché io sono una donna. Sono sceso, sono scesa. Okay, it's the masculine and feminine singular io forms. Sono apparso, or sono apparsa if you're a girl. Sono scomparso, sono scomparsa. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is give you some examples of sentences in Italian, and you can have a think about what they mean. I think I've already kind of given you that one. Siamo stati, so that's the we form, we were or we have been. Siamo stati malati l'anno scorso. L'anno scorso noi siamo stati malati. that means we were or we have been. Last year we were, we'd say in English, we were unwell. Malato, malata, malati, whatever. Siamo stati malati. Dove sei nato tu? Dove sei nato? Dove sei nato? That's in the to form. I put to at the end to make it obvious. Dove sei nato? So that is the to form of essere in the, so it's this one, with a question word. Dove, okay, where were you born? Dove sei, and then the past participle, nato. So if you're asking a girl, where were you born, right? Dove and sei, where are you, if you like, would stay the same. But then you'd have na, ta, okay? We'd have the a ending. Dove sei nata? Io sono nata nel Regno Unito, for example. So where were you guys born? What would change there? Dove stays the same, that means where. You'd use siete, which is the voi form of the auxiliary verb essere, and then nato would have to agree with the gender and number. So I'm assuming that there are men in the audience and it's the plural. So assuming that, I would say dove siete nati. If I had instead a class full of ladies, I would say dove siete nate voi. Okay, asking you all. So the ending is important to get the ending right because it reflects on the, it should agree with the gender and number of the subject, the people you're asking, or the people, or the things even that you're talking about. Okay. Sono venuto stamattina. Sono venuto stamattina. Now what does that mean? So you'll probably recognise venuto. So I can rub something out with. I'll just have to use my sleeve. Not ideal, but at least it's blue, like my pen. So sono venuto stamattina. Sono. Remember, that could mean I am, or it could mean they are. Sono venuto stamattina. So in that sentence, whoever's saying it is masculine because the ending of the past participle is singular for a start, but it's also masculine, it's an O. Venuto. So that means I came this morning, or I arrived, if you like. Sono arrivato, sono venuto, to come or to arrive or whatever. Stamattina, this morning. So it's a man speaking. If I was saying this sentence, I would say sono venuta stamattina. And if you were talking about they came this morning, like, I don't know, your parents, for example, sono venuti stamattina. And if it's your, I don't know, your sisters, sono venute stamattina. Okay, so that's how that past participle changes. Right, let's have a look. One more. È apparso il sole. È una cosa che è successo. È successa. Una cosa che è successa. That's another video where you agree the subject or the past participle with the subject. Anyway, depending on where it is in the sentence. Oggi è apparso il sole, ok? Faceva bello, ok? C'era il sole. The sun appeared today. So that's actually true. Now, in the sentence, you could say il sole è apparso, or you could say è apparso il sole. It's kind of something you've got a little bit of freedom with. So that's this past participle here. Apparso. Let's just look down there a little bit closer. È apparso il sole. The sun appeared. Right, so let's see if you can. I'll have to get rid of this in a minute because it's too easy to refer to. Although that's not such a bad thing, you know. Looking for something and finding it on a board actually does help commit it to memory, depending on how you learn. So, we looked at some Italian things. È apparso il sole, when the sun appeared. Let's look at some English, short, little phrases, not full sentences, and see how we translate them into Italian. So I will use una pagina vuota. I'll use an empty page for this. How can I fit myself in there? Just zoom out a wee bit. Ok, andiamo. Sempre con la penna blu. Okay, so I have been. I've been. Right, so I've shortened this to I've been, just to fit it on the page. So I've been, like I've been to France. Or this can also sometimes be I was. Right, but there's two different ways, two different things that you say in English which are translated in one way in Italian. So this is from the verb essere. So we'll do it in the feminine because I'm a lady. So that would be sono. Remember, we're using essere as the auxiliary verb. Sono stata. Per esempio, ieri sono stata malata. I was unwell yesterday. So that in English would be I was. But you could say I have been. I have been unwell. I've been, you tend to use more, I've been to France, I've been there, have you been? Okay, so sono stata in Francia, tante volte. Okay. So, what about I stayed? I stayed. Like, where did you stay in, I don't know, in France? I stayed in a hotel, or I stayed in Paris. So that is from the verb rimanere. So, if you're talking about I, and then the past participle, with these verbs, remember sono instead of ho. Sono rimasta. Io sono rimasta a Parigi in un albergo, for example. She died. Okay, that's a sad one. How would you say it? She died. So it's from the verb morire, and it's not morito. It starts with e. Morta. È morta. È morta ieri. Think of Morticia Adams or a mortician. So even though the verb is morire and there's no T in it, I mean, that word is similar to things related to death in other languages. Okay. He was born. He was born. Let's go there a little bit so I can use the top bit. He was born. He was born in Florence. He was born. So this is from the verb nascere, and the past participle, I'm just trying to think what it sounds like. Now, if you can think of any links with the past participle to any other languages or words in English, let me know. It's probably something really easy. So scusa, it's not sono nato, we're talking about he. So it's the third person present tense of essere, and nato. È nato a Firenze. È nata a Milano. She was born in Milan. Okay, so they came here. Okay, let's make it a little bit more difficult, and then we'll wrap it up. They came here. So they with a verb that takes essere. So you're going to be thinking sono, okay? It's like you say they are. Sono, as in they. Then came, not venito, remember, even though it's venire, sono venuto. It's not venuto. Why isn't it venuto? Because we're talking about they, remember, not I. And it's not, we can make it masculine, yeah, let's make it masculine. Sono venuti. So that I tells me that the sono refers to they. And if it was a load of ladies, sono venute. Le ragazze sono venute qui stamattina. You can make it as flowery as you like. So that's the verb essere, which goes to stato, stata. Nascere, which goes to, let's see if I can find them. I think they're out of order now. Let's just go through here. See if you remember the verb. Rimasto, rimasta, from rimanere. venuto, venuta, venuti, venute, from the verb venire. So that means came. Oh, sceso, scesa. Per esempio, sono scesa la collina. I came down the hill, to go down. From scendere, to go down. Or to get down from something. Apparso, apparsa. Apparsi, apparse. From apparire, to appear. Scomparso, scomparsa, scomparsi, scomparse. Disappear, sorry, like the S at the beginning of the word. Scomparso. Ah, è morto ieri. È morta ieri. So that's he or she died, from the verb morire. I think I've got another couple of ones over here. Stato, stata. I have been, or I was. Stati, state. Nato, nata, nati, nate. From the verb nascere. I think that's all of them. If I've missed any out, I'm very sorry. But they will be in the description under the video. And if you're already in my language club, they'll be in the handout I'm going to send you later. If you're interested in joining my language club, I'm doing a promotion this month. So until the end of December 2020, you can join my language club for £40, and that will get you a whole annual subscription. You'll get a monthly emailed handout with exercises, a link to the video, description of basically what's being discussed. You can also get a discount on block bookings of one-to-one tuition or group tuition via Skype, so you can get quite a lot with the relatively inexpensive membership, but that's only until the end of December, and then the price will go up as of 2021 to help me cover the costs of running my business, which, like many others around the world, is definitely suffering a little bit from not being able to see clients in person. So sorry about that, but hopefully you're enjoying these videos and the handouts and the links that I send for further homework. So thank you very much, grazie mille. That was irregular past participles, some of them, 8 of them, with verbs that are conjugated with essere. If you have any questions, just feel free to leave them below in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Of course, share the video around, like and subscribe, and grazie mille. Ci vediamo la prossima volta. Ciao!